much for joining us today at the Digital Divide, Municipalities' Role in Supporting Post-Secondary Students During the Pandemic, which is presented by Rafal Larukowicz from CANARIE and Sven Tretrop from City of Mississauga. Before we get into the live session, a few housekeeping items. Please enter your questions in the chat box to the right. If you're maximizing the screen for the full presentation, you'll have to minimize it to get back to the question, to get back to the chat box. We will answer the questions at the end of the session. And right at the very end, there will be a short session survey at the that we would appreciate it if you could fill out. Rafal, over to you.
Thanks, Vicki. Hello, everyone. Thank you for taking the time. My name is Rafal Larukowicz, and today I'm joined by Sven Tretrop from the City of Mississauga. And we're going to talk to you about the digital divide and how Eduroam, being that critical component in your Wi-Fi strategy for secure and online access for research and education constituents, is a great step towards bridging that gap. Next slide, please. First, let's take a quick peek at the agenda. To start, we'll go through the introductions. We'll then touch on the digital divide and how the pandemic has exacerbated the issue. We'll then focus on Eduroam, what it is, what are the benefits of launching Eduroam, how does it work, where is it currently available. Then I'll hand it over to Sven for the City of Mississauga perspective, his experience from launching Eduroam, how Eduroam fits into the overall Wi-Fi strategy, what were the observations post-launch, what are the impacts. We'll then talk about the steps to take to launch Eduroam at your municipality and then open the floor to the questions. Next slide, please. So let's start off with the introductions. So my name is Rafal Larukowicz. I'm the Program Manager for Identity and Access Management at CANARIE. I look after the Canadian Access Federation, which is an umbrella for two main services. Federated Identity Management, FIMS, which is a federation of research and higher education institutions utilizing their home institution credentials to collaborate in a federation context. And then Eduroam, the Keystone Service, which we'll talk about momentarily. Sven, over to you.
Hi, I'm Sven Tretrop. I'm the Senior Manager of IT Architecture and Innovation at the City of Mississauga. That job includes the smart city portfolio of which this is under. I've also do architecture, we do databases, we do contract management, we do business planning and cybersecurity.
Perfect. All right, let's jump into the digital divide. What is it? The term refers to the idea of the growing gap between the underprivileged members of our society who do not have access to the internet or the devices to access the internet versus those that do and benefit directly from the internet as an essential service. COVID-19 and the immediate shift to everything online brought light digital divide issues. So suddenly we're expected to work, attend school, visit the doctor, shop, etc., all online from within our household with everyone else at the household online at the same time. For some, this doesn't present a challenge. For others, however, who do not have the means at home, you are now cut off, as you previously relied on access through the public library, school library, community Wi-Fi close to home, or at work. The infrastructure outside the urban centers wasn't designed for such conditions. Canadians living in rural and northern areas now have to navigate a household of multiple people accessing online resources while praying their internet connection doesn't drop. But what about urban centers? It is true that the cities enjoy access rate that is significantly higher than the folks in the rural areas. If we look at Toronto as an example, which enjoys the nation's fastest internet and accessibility well above average, there are still those that have issues with service reliability, can't afford it, or it isn't sufficiently fast for the current mode of operation that we're in right now. Here's some interesting findings. 38% of households in Toronto report download speeds below the CRTC medium target of 50 megabytes per second download. 52% of Toronto's low-income households report download speeds below that national target. 34% of Toronto's households are worried about paying their home internet bills, and of those households that are not connected, half are not connected due to cost. And to add to that, our service providers, the carriers, have raised service rates last year. This is where Eduroam is a perfect solution to start bridging that gap, specifically for research and education community. Next slide. So what is Eduroam? Eduroam is a secure Wi-Fi service for research and education. You currently have a Wi-Fi network, Eduroam bolts onto your existing Wi-Fi infrastructure, and all it does is it ensures that research and education guests authenticate with their home institution first before they hop onto your Wi-Fi. After that, Eduroam is out of the loop. Your Wi-Fi is extended to a trusted audience, and it gains a pre-check at the door before entry. In terms of background, Eduroam's been around for over 15 years. It is standards-based and follows security best practices, and it has an active development community. In Canada, CANARIE is the national roaming operator through the Canadian Access Federation. Next slide, please. So why Eduroam? For you as the service provider, it is a no-cost, low-effort, easy win, step-up guest Wi-Fi for research and education. Eduroam quickly integrates with your existing Wi-Fi infrastructure. There's minimal maintenance, and all the users that access your Wi-Fi through Eduroam are known identities. Therefore, there's no abuse. For the end user, the user experience is slick. There's one-time configuration on the mobile device, and you essentially connect without the need to re-enter credentials. Most importantly, your device will not even attempt to associate with a rogue access point, thus mitigating the risk of a man-in-the-middle attack. Next slide, please. How does it work? Once the end user completes the one-time configuration, their mobile device is ready to go. As they're moving around, they encounter Eduroam at your site. Their mobile device will then attempt to connect to your Wi-Fi through Eduroam by using the credentials from their home institution supplied during the one-time configuration. These credentials are then relayed from your network to the CANARIE network, which sends it to their home institution. The user's home institution performs the authentication and sends back a thumbs up, which then CANARIE relays back to you, the Wi-Fi service provider. At this stage, they're good to go to grant them access, and they're good to go to jump on your Wi-Fi. Next slide, please. Where is Eduroam available? Eduroam is available worldwide, 106 countries in total. There are over 30,000 Eduroam sites worldwide broadcasting the Eduroam SSID. These not only include campuses and research facilities, but more municipalities, libraries, airport cafes, more sites closer to home. In Canada, there are 138 participating institutions and 434 different sites broadcast the SSID. Out of the participating institutions, 8 are service providers only, such as the City of Mississauga, and we have more in the queue ready to light up the service. In Ontario, there are 44 participating institutions and 106 sites. The large number of these are in Mississauga, and this is a great segue for Sven to jump in with his experience of launching Eduroam at the City of Mississauga. Sven, over to you.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I wanted to say we launched Eduroam service in 2017 as part of our Smart Cities initiative, and we actually won an award for it in 2018 for a MISA award for Canada's first virtual campus. It was a low-cost, basically no-cost investment for us. It's a really easy system to implement. In the first week, we had students from Australia, we had students from Germany, UK, and US, and UK. We're connecting through our network. As you can see, if you went to visit our smartcity.mississauga.ca program page, you'll see that it's an integral part of that overall program. If you want to read more about that, go visit that page. You'll see a section here about that talks about Eduroam. Also, you can see on the right-hand side our economic development group uses it to sell the City of Mississauga as a tech-forward city. So you can see it's a virtual city campus. Anyone can work from anywhere, and I'll show you how that works in a minute. Eduroam, it's a quick win. It's easy to set up and has no ongoing maintenance that's required on our end. And you get lots of good advertisement and good PR from it. So you can see here a couple of newspaper articles from, announcing us as the first place to launch a virtual campus. It's also a piece of our public sector network. So as some of you may know, we are joint owners of the public sector network, which is shared between us, the City of Brampton, Peel, and Caledon. And it's our own backbone, fiber backbone, 800 kilometers of fiber optics, and 102 facilities connected in that network. So what does that mean? You see on the left-hand side, it's not the greatest set of icons here, but there's access points all throughout the city of Mississauga. Before, what would have happened is the students would have to go to their local facility and then they would log into their own Wi-Fi. But in this case, they can go to any of those Wi-Fi spots and then use their networks within their countries. So you can see it's available. It's presented as, anywhere we see Wireless Mississauga, which is our so-called public Wi-Fi. Beside that, you would see the word Eduroam, and the folks connect to that. It's part of our wireless network. You can see here again. Okay, and it's one of two main methods for public Wi-Fi access. So you'll see our, some private internal networks, and you'll also see this SSID. You'll see Wireless Mississauga. You just connect to it, and then you would see the word Eduroam, and it explains how to do that here. It's available in all public Wi-Fi hotspots throughout Mississauga. Students and staff from any place in any educational institute in the world that's on Eduroam can work seamlessly from any public hotspot. That includes outdoors. So you can see, you could go into Celebration Square. Here's some articles in here that show Celebration Square as an interesting place for people to plop down and get a tan and work from. So they could sit there, open up their laptop, and connect to their local institution. Eduroam is also available at Sheridan College and UTM, so that means roaming between the Sheridan campuses and the University of Toronto in Mississauga campuses, or even the downtown Toronto campuses, the libraries, community centers, transit stations. It's completely seamless. There's no need to log in each time. Students and profs just open their laptops and they start working. So again, you might say, well, what's the difference between that and going into a normal Wi-Fi hotspot? Well, the person has to search for a Wi-Fi hotspot. There may be different credentials on each of those things. In this case, once you're on Eduroam, you truly have complete roaming between all the facilities. You can see here the Sheridan campus, so it's also available at our Sheridan campus, the Mississauga, Oakville, and Brampton campuses. Sheridan, and this is the great part, Sheridan provisions their own Eduroam connection, no need for you to do anything. And then Eduroam is in addition to, or can replace Sheridan's internal Wi-Fi SSID. So I noticed that some schools, what they do is they actually say, forget about having students connect to, in this case, they call it, I think it's called Sheridan Secure, their internal Wi-Fi. They can just connect to Eduroam, then they can just take a bus over and go to Sheridan College, and then they would, or Sheridan or UTM, it would seamlessly connect, or any other facility that's on this. You can see it's also available at the University of Toronto campuses in Mississauga. Again, it can also replace their network, and you can see the page on the left-hand side that explains their network. I noticed some places actually say, we prefer you to use Eduroam, and their own one becomes a secondary SSID. It's also available at all City of Mississauga community centers, so you can work from any community center. You can work within the library, so students and staff from any educational institute in the world can work seamlessly from any Mississauga library. It's available at our transit stations, so bus rapid transit stations, our central Square One shopping transit terminal. Again, just open up your laptop or your device, and you can connect to your local institution. Some key learnings. It honestly, I'm not kidding, it literally took less than 2 days to set this up. It's extremely easy. People started using it immediately. Authentication is handled entirely by the educational organization, so no need for you to manage users at all. And you can have different rules if you like for Eduroam users that you may not give to the public if you like. That means rules can be less restrictive. It certainly helps with the digital divide and inclusivity for students, because as soon as the person walks outdoors and they get to a public Wi-Fi hotspot, they're essentially working on their school network. So is it being used? Yes, it is. You can see, of course, there's a huge drop down during the pandemic period when outdoor activities were more restrictive. But so I took some examples from 2018, which are a bit more representative. So if you looked in the tab here at the upper right hand corner, it gives you a sense of how our traffic is broken down. So if you looked at the last line where it says percent of traffic, 80% of our wireless traffic is going through our wireless Mississauga public Wi-Fi. We've got 14% going to staff. We have a small footprint in our bus system, our transit specialized secure network there. And then you've got the two sides, Sheridan access and Eduroam access. So Sheridan is a special case because Sheridan is right next to City Hall. So those students were always able to connect to our network. But now you just say, hey, how about Eduroam? So about 3% in 2018 of all the users, of all the traffic was actually Eduroam people finding it on their own. On the left-hand side, you can see some examples of the Canadian institutions. So you can see the table on the left-hand side at the very bottom here. You'll see University of Waterloo, that was the most. So that would be a University of Waterloo student opening up their laptop somewhere in the city of Mississauga and connecting to their institution. Ryerson, University of Toronto, University of Guelph, Trent, Sheridan, etc., all the way through. And this gives you a little bit of a sense of the number of people. If we go down here, you can also see there's countries as well. So Ghent University from Netherlands, again, the people from the Netherlands were in Mississauga connecting. That goes to show you, I guess, maybe the Netherlands are the party people here that are able to travel the most. You can see below it some places from UK, a Spanish university, French university, and all those people were able to log in seamlessly. So there was about 1 million logins between for over a year. That was during the pre-pandemic period. So it's a bit of a busy slide here, but it's just going to show you. So as long as a student can find an access point anywhere in the world, including Mississauga, that's broadcasting Eduroam, they'll be able to connect to their educational institution. So for example, if a student from, say, the University of Cape Town in South Africa was studying or vacationing in Canada, they could just open up their laptop and look for that Wi-Fi Eduroam signal, and they'll be able to access all of their resources immediately without any barriers. The process would work the same in reverse for a Sheridan College or a UTM person traveling anywhere overseas. So if you're in the UK, open up your laptop and bam, you can connect to Sheridan and UTM resources seamlessly from there. So why should you participate? Well, there is the point that it's a tangible benefit to all students and academics within your city. The more organizations that sign up, the more seamless the access will be. So if you look on the right-hand side here, this is an example of some coverage maps. So if you look in, you'll see Mississauga is this huge amount of connections. You'll see 22 spots, 20 spots, 3 spots, 4 spots here, different places. And then you might see huge holes, let's say, where people haven't joined Eduroam yet. So, as students are looking for places to connect. So it's a differentiator for your city, but it's really important that you understand you can think of it, if we want students to be able to go across Canada from city to city, we have to fill in that gap by providing Eduroam access to them. Students and profs will be impressed that you're a tech-forward city, and probably one of the best reasons is if you want to get a check mark beside your name this year, that is absolutely one of the easiest projects that you can do that absolutely makes a huge difference. If you just do it, if you build it, they will come. It is honestly a zero cost project, and did we mention there's no charge to participate? That's absolutely true. Back to you, Raf.
Thanks very much. That was great. So in terms of logistics, just being mindful of time. So how do we launch Eduroam at your municipality in terms of next steps? The process is quite simple. First, you go to the CANARIE website and apply to join the Canadian Access Federation as an Eduroam service provider. There are no fees. The actual onboarding process, there's 2 steps. There's the admin onboarding process and the technical onboarding process. Again, both very quick. We're there to support you through that entire exercise. And then once the service is live, then you can just promote it. Next slide, please. And with that, we can open it up to questions. So please enter your questions in either the chat or you can speak up. Either one works for us. No questions. Oh, there's a question. The traffic is not VPN. So think of it as joining any Wi-Fi network, whether it's at home, whether it's at an institution. It's the user ends up joining your Wi-Fi, and then it's up to them to determine how they're going to access the resources. If they have a VPN enabled on their device, then they would join. Then they would access resources through the VPN. Otherwise, it's online connectivity.
All you're doing is you're basically providing the Wi-Fi access, the SSID itself, and you're passing it along. And so there's really, you know, any like right now I'm sitting in my home, I'm using a VPN back to City Hall, but I'm accessing my local Wi-Fi within my house. In this case, the students are just using your public Wi-Fi, and then it's being passed on to Eduroam. Right, Rob?
That's correct. Yep. Next question. Do you need to have a local post-secondary institution partner? You do not. It's a benefit for the city of Mississauga because there's 2 campuses right nearby, but it's really in support to the folks, the higher ed folks living in your community, because through Eduroam they'll be able to get access to the institution that they are enrolled with in anywhere around the world. So this is particularly beneficial for folks who are completely virtual that otherwise would be on site at their campus right now. So they can access Eduroam by being close to that SSID and get on Wi-Fi.
I actually have to admit I kind of misunderstood that a little bit at the beginning of the project, but now I completely see, as you saw some of those stats, what we need all of your all of your communities to be to fill in the map across Canada in here. So you would be surprised, you know, would you think that someone from let's say the University of Ghent is basically sitting somewhere within the city of Mississauga? It absolutely does not mean that the student has to be going to a local institution at all. It just means that your outdoor Wi-Fi, you're saying that person opens up their laptop and can work.
Yeah, and that's actually another good point in the sense that Eduroam pulls people into sites that provide Eduroam. So it's economic driver, it's a driver for tourism. Obviously not as much so now, but when folks start roaming around, people seek out Eduroam because it's fast, it's convenient, it's access to Wi-Fi. So it's going to pull people into your location. Next question. Are most major Ontario educational institutions participating or planning to? Yes. So we have 130 higher ed institutions from Canada right now participating, and we're expanding that footprint as much as possible.
You'll also notice that if you visit any of these educational institutes, like their wireless pages, they'll almost always have side by side their normal thing that they would call it, let's say, Secure Sheridan, and then on the right hand side they would say use or Eduroam, or in some cases they'll actually say, you know, use Eduroam, and if you want to use our local your local connection.
Yep. Any other questions?
So I would totally encourage all of you guys to do this, because this is literally the easiest way to get a check mark beside your name. It will give you some marketing that you can do within your local municipality. It can be a small city, it can be a small town, in fact, and say anyone in the world who's traveling through your town or can connect to any of your public Wi-Fi hotspots will be able to connect to their local institutions. You know, it really is, like, honestly, it is one day's work.
Yeah. So in terms of security, there's a question with regards to how is security handled. Access is given to the user. It's a one-time configuration on the mobile device. There's a supplicant that is pulled down from each institution. It has all of the necessary credentials, certificates, and it knows to connect to the appropriate Eduroam SSID. And once the authentication is completed at the home institution, Eduroam is out of the loop, and the user is on the host's Wi-Fi. It's just like any other guest. Were there any security measures? I guess this is more of a question for Sven that you had to implement.
You'd have to ask ask our networking folks, but I mean, I think basically what the main thing here is that it's essentially doing exactly what you did before. You know, in some cases, you may decide on one network, like your public network, maybe you don't allow VPNs on that network, so then you allow it on this one, because these are, you're already you're kind of federating identity in a sense. So that student is a student truly of the University of Ghent that is in here. They're a paid student, so it's maybe a slightly higher level of security, or that you might say of that particular person. Yep. But you are literally just you're listening for your SSID, and you're passing it through to the local institution. So that's all you're doing.
But that's a good distinction to highlight, is that folks joining on Eduroam are all known identities. So there is no, avatars. There is no fake profile set up. Everybody is a bona fide vetted identity by a credited institution, by a credit granting institution.
So if you wanted to, let's say you were a hacker, I'm not saying that you can't be a hacker, because you could be someone at University of Waterloo or something in that program, but in general, you're a known identified user. So if I was a hacker, I wouldn't be using that credential at all. You're federating. It's almost like you're saying, hey, somebody would have to actually literally join a university, pay their money to join that university in order to get an access to Eduroam. You won't do that. You'll probably more likely go onto your normal public wireless, because then you'll be essentially unauthenticated. But we especially like the fact that we don't really have to worry about any kind of special user IDs. The universities have to just take care of that themselves.
Well, thanks for all the great questions. I think we can go to the last slide. Great. Thank you again for taking the time. Today we touched a bit on the digital divide and how Eduroam is that critical component of your Wi-Fi strategy to support your research and education constituents. We talked about what Eduroam is, the benefits of launching Eduroam, how it works, and where it is available. And then Sven gave us a great overview from the perspective of the city of Mississauga, from his experience with launching Eduroam at the municipal level. And then we went over the process of what you need to do to launch Eduroam at your municipality. I hope that you have gained something out of this session. I hope that you're ready to implement immediately. If we haven't connected already, here are our coordinates, here are my coordinates, here are Sven's coordinates. I'm a resource for you. Connect with me on LinkedIn or send me an email, and I look forward towards working with you.
Yes, I'd like to thank Sven and Rafal for a great presentation. Everyone, please visit the exhibit hall to chat with our exhibitors and ask for codes for the MISA hunt. See you at our next session.